On today's show, was the LA Clippers season a failure? Gonna be talking about it all on today's Locked On Still in Cancun Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir, you are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, born and raised in LA, and just finished my 19th season as a Clipper fan. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod and subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for even more NBA, LA Clipper, and LA sports content. And Locked On Clippers is free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. And I want you to let me know if you think the 2023-2024 Clippers season was a failure. Now, let's talk about failure. What is failure? Giannis Antetokounmpo style. No, let's be honest. I think every season a fan base and a team sets a goal. Now, every NBA team is going to say our goal is to win the championship because mathematically, before the season starts, everyone's 0-0 and everyone has the same odds. But we know that talent is dispersed differently in this league, and only certain teams have a real shot of winning a title. The second the Clippers got Kawhi Leonard and Paul George on July 5th, 2019, it was championship or bust every single season since. The only season that wasn't was 2022 because Kawhi Leonard was out the whole season with the torn ACL. In 2020, we failed. 2021, I think after we lost in the second round again, the 2021 Clippers are going to want to say that their goal was to win the championship. But me as a fan, I was just like, for the love of God, can you please get out the second round? Like, can we just break that curse? Because it really feels like a curse. And I'll never forget, after the 2015 3-1 series that we should not have blown to the Rockets, Blake Griffin said something that will stick with me forever. And he said, the Clipper curse was never about not making it out of the second round. It was about not drafting well and not being able to win in this league, not being able to put together consecutive winning seasons, multiple playoff appearances in a row, be an actual team that got 50 wins. It wasn't about the second round. And he said, well, we broke through that one, and we're going to break through this one. And sadly, he wasn't able to be the one that broke it, but that stuck with me forever. And so that's why I don't believe the Clippers are actually cursed. When people say the Clippers are cursed, you're talking now about winning a championship. I mean, now that means the curse is evolving. It never used to be, the Clippers are cursed, they're never going to win. I mean, maybe some Laker fans said the Clippers are cursed, they're never going to win a ring. But a lot of people were saying the Clippers are cursed, they're never going to make it out of the second round. The Clippers will never be good. It's evolved. Now it's becoming that we're never going to win a ring. So, okay, we're getting closer. We're getting closer. But that second round thing, it really felt like we were cursed. So for us to get out of that second round, I think everybody can agree 2021 was a success. And the fact that we were eliminated without our best player, I think that gave that what if, like, man, had he been healthy, I think we could have gone all the way. And I think a lot of Clipper fans to this day believe that. I believe we definitely would have been beaten Phoenix. Like, from the bottom of my heart, I am so confident we would have beaten Phoenix. But I don't know if we would have beaten Milwaukee. I truly don't. It would have been a good series. 2023 was a failure. And in 2024, we had a much better regular season. We looked like a much better basketball team. Our stars were healthier. It all was much more functional. There wasn't this reported, conflict between front office and coach. We didn't have 3 different point guards that we tried out. It was pretty constant. We just had a slump after one of our great stretches. We go 26-5, or playing like the best team in the league, have the latest number 1 seed in Clipper history, like relative to a season, the furthest into a season that the Clippers have ever been the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. And then we just kind of fell off a cliff for a while and then closed the season without Kawhi Leonard in decent fashion. But to only, after everything, win one more game in the playoffs than we did last year after trading for James Harden, giving up expiring contracts, and an unprotected first rounder. And I want people to stop looking at the players that we gave up and look at the expiring contracts that would have been potentially attractive at the deadline. That we could have maybe gone for something else that we maybe would have needed more. Although if you think that playmaking was what we needed this whole time, then there's no regrets on the Harden trade. But we gave up an unprotected first rounder, which, I mean, considering we're so, devoid of picks for the next couple of years, just giving up more to only go one game further in the playoffs, it just hurts. But again, the main reason we failed is because we weren't able to finish the season healthy. And all season long, we had the best health season that we've had in the 2-1-3 era. Kawhi Leonard actually playing 68 games. Paul George playing 74 games. James Harden 72 games. Norman Powell 76. Zoo 68. Russ 68. Terrence 75. Amir Coffey 70. Like, that many players playing 65 plus games is amazing considering what we've seen the last couple of seasons here with the Clippers. But sadly, it just still didn't work out. We abandoned load management. We really had Kawhi play basically every game he could, and it didn't work. So neither worked. Load management in 2023, being cautious, didn't work. 2024, playing hard. It got us a better regular season record, made us look like a better team, had Kawhi playing some of the best basketball of his career, got him all NBA second team, got him a new contract, which we shouldn't have given him. And sadly, the inflammation happened, and Law even talked about it, that it wasn't an injury. When Law Murray came on the podcast, he said it was just the overuse. And I mean, what do you attribute that to? Can he not play 68 games? I mean, we got him another star to take an offensive load off of him, but we did rip away our power forward depth. So he was playing a lot of that second biggest guy on the court position and small ball center at times in the few times that we did go small. So are you, like, if somebody suggests that that's why, are we saying that the Harden trade contributed to Kawhi's knee inflammation? I mean, I don't really want to go push that agenda. I just think we're making a lot of statements, and all of them conclude in there are so many things that seem to have to go right to get Kawhi Leonard to finish a season. And I don't know if he can finish a full postseason run anymore. And, considering we've re-signed him, banking on that makes me nervous. So the solution, or what I don't think there is a solution except for just pray for the best and hope that luck finally goes his way as a Clipper. But what we're going to do, and I don't have like a 100% fact on this, but Law Murray kind of alluded to it, we're going to go back to load management with Kawhi next year. He probably won't be playing back-to-backs. And, after seeing Dallas win the West with a 5 seed, I don't think they're going to care about seeding. I think they're just going to say, as long as you get him healthy, that's all that matters. And honestly, I can't even blame them anymore. But it's just, no, don't put stock in the regular season as much. And it's like, even when they're healthy, James Harden and Paul George, you don't know what you're going to get. But coming up, let's talk about the on-court product. How close did the on-court product look to a championship team? Going to be talking about that coming up. I got to tell you a little something about PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. All you got to do is pick more or less on 2 or more players' stats and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the playoff action and win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks as you and the world's best players take the game to a new level during the NBA Finals. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with basketball, hockey, and college basketball entries today on PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. And now the WNBA season is in full effect. You can bet, or you can make entries on Caitlin Clark or Cameron Brink if you're a Sparks fan. You got to always take the more on the blocks with Cam. But download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. That's download the app today, the PrizePicks app, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right. So talking about the LA Clippers season and whether or not it's a failure. I mean, for me, I had championship or bust expectations, and especially when adding James Harden to the equation, you needed to at least get to the conference finals. And as I said, we don't know what this team's potential could have been again because of Kawhi Leonard's injury, but that's part of the equation is staying healthy, and we failed in that regard yet again. And I don't think the Clippers organization did anything wrong. I think we approached the regular season right for a change, and I think it just showed that Kawhi Leonard's body is, it's tough right now. It's really tough to build around that as a number one. But let's talk about what they actually looked like when they were on the court. I think there were two different versions of this Clipper team. There was the one that we saw in that slump in March and April, and I think late February. And then there was the December, January, and early February where the Clippers just, coming back from that Grammy trip, we looked like world beaters. I think somewhere, if you combine all those results, is what the Clippers are, is that they looked like a championship contending team for a while because Kawhi Leonard was playing so well. And let's just start with that. When Kawhi Leonard's playing at a high level, when Kawhi Leonard's playing at his level, when he's healthy and playing, there aren't that many better players in the NBA. Maybe 5. Let me, you know what? Let me think who I think is better right now in the NBA based on how these playoffs have gone. And I'm going to compare that to what I saw in 2023 from Kawhi in the playoffs when he was healthy for those first 2 games. I'll take Jokic over him. We'll go with Giannis. We'll go with it. I'm not taking Steph anymore. I'm not. Luka. Ugh, that might be it. Seriously. Like, who else? Like, I'm not taking LeBron, AD, Tatum. Again, this is just if he's healthy, and of course it's a ridiculous if. But I'm taking Kawhi basically top 3 or 4 in the league when he's healthy, and that's the level that he was playing at. The stats don't always fully reflect it because, 1, he doesn't shot hunt in the regular season. 2, sometimes he doesn't shoot enough. That's one thing. But he's also playing with James Harden and Paul George. And James Harden has the ball in his hands a lot. And then there were a lot of games where the Clippers were beating teams up. And he got to rest a lot. Seriously. So Kawhi was playing at an extremely high level. And his defense was very good. Right? 24 points a game, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. He was all NBA second team. And then the real change was, Paul George is going to have his shooting slumps. And he's going to have his hot stretches. That's normal. But the real change was James Harden and the advantages that he was creating on a nightly basis in pick and roll. He had a little burst to his step that he just quite didn't have for the remainder of the season. And I think that's just fatigue over the course of a season. He puts a lot of burden on himself on the ball. It's always been the last, let's say, 12 years, give or take. And he's usually healthy. And I don't know what he was doing this year. I don't know if he changed his ways. But coming into the Clippers, I've been told that James Harden still lives a very fun lifestyle. He gets out, and he's around. He's outside. So, all things considered, he's also on the older side. He's been through plenty of injuries. The toll of the season kind of just wore on him. But he still played well enough in the playoffs for what you expect from him, I'd say. I only think he had 2 great games. The other games, I don't think he was quite good enough. All 4 of them, honestly. Just looked good shooting percentage-wise. But as a third option, I think his stats, if you look at him over the course of the series, they were good. They were fine. But it wasn't, you weren't going to beat the Mavericks without Kawhi. Even if Paul George had played better, I don't think so. We just weren't a better team in any way, shape, or form without Kawhi. Now, to answer the question, I think that we are a team that's very good, but I think every single time we played against a team that was contender or young, we didn't look that great. Minnesota kind of beat us up. OKC kind of ran us off the floor. And as the season went on, you could just see the fatigue factor. You could just see that we were old. We're still too reliant on jump shots, and we don't get to the rim enough. And our point of attack defense is still not quite good enough. And we lacked a 4. So all those things, I don't think we were good enough to win the championship. And Russell Westbrook off the bench is just too volatile. As a starter, he's volatile too, but off the bench, I feel like you're just not getting much of the positive from Russ on a consistent basis. You're not maximizing him because he's in his, he's kind of in his feels and he's trying so hard to make an impact. So that's how I feel about that. So to answer the question, did we put together a championship product on the court? Not quite. I don't think we failed miserably. I still think the Harden trade was a mistake in terms of that being what we went for. I think we should have, given the season some time to see what we needed, because fact of the matter is we gave up all our fours. We didn't have that size. And we didn't have the athleticism to contend, truly, in my opinion, with the Minnesotas of the world. And I don't know what would have happened in the playoffs against OKC, but it's just we're a little too slow and old. And I think teams had better point of attack defenders than us. We didn't create enough easy baskets. We became very reliant on what kind of looks is James Harden getting us in pick and roll. And I don't want to be that kind of team that's really reliant on that. Because Kawhi and Paul, they live off a pretty tough shot diet. It's a lot of contested jump shots. Paul George doesn't get to the rim enough. In Kawhi's case, when he's got that contested mid-range from 15 feet and in, or even like 16 feet and in, it's pretty money. I'll take that. That's like a layup, in my opinion. But Paul, you just don't know what you're going to get. So then a lot comes down to James Harden creating in the pick and roll. We don't use Ivica Zubac enough as a creator in terms of throwing down the ball to him and asking him to create. That's something we got to definitely look at next season. So how do we elevate this team? Well, we got to get some more athleticism and size at the 4 position, for sure. Can we get a better point of attack defender than Terrence? I doubt it. Got to develop Zoo over the course of the season more as a go-to guy. That's all we can do. I think in terms of what we produced, I don't think we were that big of a failure. I think we were actually still one of the better teams in the league. But the health part is where we just didn't come through. But coming up, we'll talk about the performances of certain guys in the playoffs. Who can we actually trust next season for the long haul, if that's the goal? Going to talk about that coming up. All right, so to close out, let's just talk about the playoffs, right? My whole thing before this season ended was like, whoever plays well in the playoffs is coming back. Whoever doesn't is gone. But that was assuming that Kawhi was healthy. And that's one thing I don't like, is that over the last couple of seasons as a Clipper fan, 4 seasons in a row without Kawhi, every single player on the roster has had to play above what they're supposed to be doing. They've had to, bench above what they can. And that's because that's not ideal. That's not ideal for any of them, stars or role players. So let's just go with my definition of or my criteria before the playoffs started. If you didn't play well in the playoffs, you're out. If you did, you're in. So I'm going to be the judge of this. Kobe Brown, he didn't really play, so that doesn't count. Brandon Boston didn't really play, doesn't count. So let me just say this. If they have no chance of contributing to a playoff rotation, time to trade them or let them go if they want to go all in with this era. I'm sorry, because you don't have enough. But you want to, wait for the future. It's like, that's why this is so flawed to me. I mean, you want to have some youth, but if Brandon Boston Jr. and Kobe Brown are not going to be able to play basketball, important basketball, they're just sitting there, not even able to contribute throughout a regular season, then trade them and get someone else. There are teams out there that will go for young players. Amir Coffey, he did not play well enough in the playoffs. So, but again, he had to start half the games, which is not ideal. That's not what Amir Coffey's out there to be. This was his first time playing any playoff basketball too, but based on my criteria, he would have to go. We'd have to look to trade him based on what I was saying before the playoffs. Daniel Tice, I wouldn't re-sign him because we didn't use him, right? We didn't use him in the playoffs. So if you're not going to use him, let him go. Go get some. Just let Kai Jones take those minutes when Mason Plumlee or Ivica Zubac is injured. Mason Plumlee, he was awful. Don't re-sign him. Bones Highland, he didn't do anything, right? Another young player wasting away. Trade him. You're not using him in the regular season because Russ and Harden were healthy. Get rid of him. You can use Xavier Moon if one of them goes down. PJ Tucker, just awful. Get rid of him. Try to get rid of him at any means necessary. Man, right now nobody would be on this team. Westbrook, awful. He was terrible. Trade him. Even if he opts into the player option, get rid of him. So at this point, I'm just cleaning house. Terrence Mann, I would keep him. 9 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists on 41% from the field, but 45.5% from 3, which is kind of the opposite of what we saw this season, where he shot well from the field and then not great from 3, but I would keep Terrence. And he consistently performs in the playoffs. And again, had to perform a little bit above his weight again in this postseason. But the one thing about Terrence is he needs to let it fly more. He shoots 45.5% from 3. Defenses are still giving him the 3 ball, and he's just not letting it fly. And that can be very frustrating. Then there's Kawhi, who you can't really judge, so I'm just going to keep going. Norman Powell averaged 13 points a game on 43% shooting and 45 from 3. Look, I think Norm was a little disappointing in the playoffs, but again, he had to do more than it was needed from him. And Norm's whole game is benefiting off of the creation of other guys. And without Kawhi Leonard, we weren't creating nearly the same amount of good looks. So I think Norman Powell was fine. I think I obviously would want to keep Norman Powell. Zubats, no debate. Definitely bring him back. Paul George, based on my criteria, he'd be out the door. Just let him walk. Don't re-sign him. And then James Harden, based on the stats, he looked good. I don't think he was quite good enough, but again, he was asked to do more than he needed to do. He still shot 45% from the field and 38 from 3 and averaged 21 points and 8 assists and 4.5 boards to go along with a steal and a block. So if you read those stats out like that, they sound good. So I'd say James Harden keep. So my team would be James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, Norman Powell, Ivica Zubats, Terrence Mann. That would maybe even be the starting lineup. How about that? James Harden, Norman Powell, Terrence Mann, Kawhi, and Zoo. But then you still have Kawhi playing the 4. But that wouldn't be a terrible starting 5, I don't think. Right? But then off the bench, you literally have nobody on the roster except for like Kai Jones, Moussa Diabate, Jordan Miller. You have to replenish. Well, you're going to trade some guys, right? You're going to get rid of some guys. But yeah. So what's the realistic thing? I mean, in the postseason, Paul George, he made me change my opinion of him. I don't believe and trust him at all going forward. His performance was weak. 19 points a game. All the problems that we saw all year that came through in the playoffs. He didn't take advantage of mismatches, had no go-to moves, shot himself out of games with only jump shots. Defense was whatever. Didn't take over games. No authority in games, really. Just was good in games 4 and 1. He was good in game 1. He was great in game 4. Not good enough in the others. Just no superstar quality to him at all in terms of, like, I'm taking this over. And then, he's saying failures. It's not, we don't see this failure. The pressure's off as I get older. It's just, you give it your all and that's it. Like, no. And he doesn't look hungry at all. And then he's doing the podcast after. It's just like, just another year in the books. My biggest thing about the playoffs is that my opinion of Paul George changed about how much I believe in him going forward. So how do you solve the playoff problem? Well, you got to have Kawhi there to put everybody back in their normal spot. As far as Paul George, I don't see him changing. I think the only thing that can change is just that he has less weight to carry because of Kawhi being there and then having a better team around him. That's all I can really say. But that's it for me in this one, ladies and gentlemen. It was a failure of a season. Both seasons with me as host of Locked On Clippers were failures of a season, sadly. Maybe it's me. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod. Subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for even more LA Clipper and LA sports content. And Locked On Clippers is free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. Let me know if you thought this was a failure of a season, and let me know about any details of what I said. If you had a problem with it, if you agreed, give me all your thoughts in the comments below. The age-old proverb continues, go Clippers.